Night fell quietly over Japan. The city of Musutafu glowed with the familiar rhythm of hero society. Neon lights shimmered across skyscrapers. Late trains rushed through glowing stations. Patrol heroes moved across rooftops, their silhouettes cutting across the skyline like silent guardians. Everything felt normal until the sky split open. High above the clouds, a blazing streak of light tore across the heavens. At first, people assumed it was a meteor, a burning fragment of space rock plunging toward Earth. Phones lifted into the air as citizens recorded the spectacle. Social media feeds flooded instantly. But something about the object was wrong. It wasn't falling randomly. It slowed. Far above the atmosphere, satellites suddenly flickered. Communication signals stuttered. Radar screens briefly went dark. For 3 seconds, the object simply hovered. Then it changed direction. It angled downward, directly toward Musutafu. Emergency alert systems activated across the city. Sirens erupted. Police broadcasts flooded the streets. Unidentified object entering the atmosphere. Possible meteor impact. Evacuate open areas immediately. Across the skyline, pro-heroes launched into motion. Wings spread. Engines roared. Speed-based quirks activated as patrol units rushed toward the predicted crash zone. But the object wasn't aiming for the city itself. It shot past the outer districts and slammed into the dense forest outside Musutafu. The impact was catastrophic. A blinding column of light struck the ground like a divine spear. The earth shook violently. Trees exploded outward as a shockwave tore through the forest. Birds scattered into the sky. And for several seconds, the entire region was silent. Smoke rose slowly above the tree line. Minutes later, the first heroes arrived. Searchlights cut through the darkness as emergency vehicles surrounded the crater site. Firefighters prepared for potential forest fires. Police secured the perimeter. But the heroes who landed at the center of the destruction froze in place. Because what they saw was not a meteor. At the bottom of the crater, kneeling in the scorched earth, was a figure. A giant. At least 50 meters tall. Its body was sleek and humanoid, covered in smooth metallic armor, colored silver and crimson red. The surface reflected the glow of emergency lights like polished steel. At the center of its chest, a glowing crystal pulsed faintly. Blink, blink, blink. A slow, weakening rhythm. For several moments, nobody spoke. One of the pro-heroes finally broke the silence. "Is that a support item?" Another shook his head. "No support gear is that big." A third hero whispered the thought everyone else was having. "That's not a human." The giant figure trembled slightly. Its head tilted upward toward the sky, as if searching for something. Then something even stranger happened. The massive body began to glow. The silver and red armor dissolved into streams of light. The towering form shrank rapidly, collapsing inward as if the giant itself was compressing into a smaller shape. The heroes instinctively stepped back. Within seconds, the colossal being was gone. In its place, lying at the center of the crater, was a human. A young man. His clothes were unfamiliar, sleek, almost uniform-like. His breathing was shallow. Dirt and ash covered his body. But the strangest thing wasn't his appearance. It was the readings coming from the hero scanners. One of the heroes checked again, then frowned. That's impossible. Another hero looked over his shoulder. What is it? The scanner operator spoke slowly. There's no quirk factor. The surrounding heroes exchanged confused looks. Every human in the world had a quirk signature. Even people without active abilities still possessed the genetic marker. But this man registered nothing. No quirk, no mutation, no biological anomaly. It was as if he didn't belong to this world at all. Suddenly, the man's fingers twitched. The heroes immediately moved into defensive positions. The young man slowly opened his eyes. For a moment, his gaze was unfocused, as if his mind was struggling to adjust. Then, his vision sharpened. He looked at the surrounding heroes, at the unfamiliar sky, at the strange city lights glowing beyond the forest. Confusion crossed his face. One of the heroes cautiously stepped forward. Hey, can you hear me? The stranger didn't respond immediately. Instead, his hand slowly rose to his chest, to a small device embedded near his collar, a circular emblem. It was glowing faintly. Blink, blink, blink. The same rhythm the giant had shown moments earlier, but now it was faster, weaker. The stranger stared at the blinking light with sudden urgency. His voice finally came out in a quiet whisper. No, it followed me. The heroes stiffened. What followed you? One demanded. The young man's eyes slowly lifted toward the dark horizon, toward the distant mountains beyond the forest. His expression shifted from confusion to dread. Somewhere far away, the ground trembled. Not an earthquake. Something deeper. Something moving beneath the earth. The stranger's breathing grew tense. They found this world. The heroes exchanged uneasy glances. Who did? The young man's voice dropped to a grave whisper. The Kaiju. And as the device on his chest began blinking faster, the night sky above Musutafu suddenly flashed with distant lightning. Something was already coming. Cold white lights flickered across the ceiling. When the stranger opened his eyes again, the forest was gone. Instead, he was staring up at a reinforced steel chamber. Thick observation windows, sealed doors, rows of glowing monitors lining the walls. The air smelled sterile, controlled. Every surface was engineered for containment. A facility, not a hospital. He slowly sat up. Instantly, a sharp mechanical click echoed through the room as restraint fields activated around the examination bed. Invisible barriers shimmered faintly in the air. Someone was being careful. Behind the glass, several figures watched closely. Scientists and pro-heroes. One of the technicians leaned closer to the microphone. Subject is conscious. Another screen displayed a cascade of biological readings. Heart rate, brain activity, cellular scans. Yet the numbers made no sense. A tall hero standing near the observation window crossed his arms, eyes narrowed. So, this is the thing that fell from space. Another hero responded quietly. That thing turned into a human. Or it disguised itself as one. The room grew tense. Inside the chamber, the young man swung his legs off the bed. His movements were slow, cautious, like someone testing gravity for the first time. His hand instinctively touched the small device embedded near his chest. The light was still blinking. Blink, blink, blink. Weak, but stable. The young man exhaled quietly. Good, still functioning. Behind the glass, one of the scientists spoke. He's talking. A female researcher activated the intercom. Can you hear us? The stranger looked up toward the window. For a moment, his expression showed pure confusion. Then, realization. You're observing me. The scientist nodded instinctively, even though he might not understand the gesture. Yes, you crashed near Musutafu City last night. You caused significant seismic disturbance. Before we proceed further, we need to ask you several questions. A second hero stepped closer to the glass. First one's simple, he said bluntly. What are you? The young man looked at his hands, then around the chamber, then back toward the observers. I am a host. The room fell silent. A host for what? The scientist asked. The stranger raised his gaze. For Ultraman. Several researchers exchanged confused looks. The name meant nothing to them. One of the heroes frowned. Ultraman? Is that a code name? A quirk? The stranger slowly shook his head. No. He paused, searching for the right words. Ultraman is a guardian of light, a cosmic defender, a being who protects civilizations across the universe from catastrophic threats. And I am the one who carries his power in this world. Behind the glass, the monitoring equipment beeped softly as the scanners analyzed his body again. One scientist leaned forward toward the screen. Check the quirk registry again. Another technician typed rapidly. Already did. No match. Run a deeper genetic scan. The machine processed the results for several seconds. Then, the technician's voice grew uncertain. There's no quirk factor. The room froze. Every human in existence possessed a quirk signature, even if their ability never manifested. But this man? Nothing. A pro-hero spoke quietly. That's impossible. The lead researcher stared at the readings. Not impossible, she murmured. Just unprecedented. She activated the intercom again. You said you carry power, she said calmly. But our instruments show no quirk gene in your DNA. So tell me, where does your power come from? The young man hesitated. Then he spoke. It comes from the light of another universe. Silence filled the room. Several scientists exchanged skeptical looks. A hero whispered under his breath. This guy's insane. But the monitors suddenly flickered. Energy readings spiked violently. The technicians straightened in alarm. Wait, we're detecting something. On the screen, a strange waveform appeared. It wasn't biological. But it wasn't technological either. The energy pulsed with an unknown frequency, like a star burning inside a human body. One scientist stared at the data in disbelief. What is this? The young man watched them quietly. You're detecting Ultraman. The researchers looked back at him. Our instruments can't classify it, one admitted. It doesn't behave like energy we've ever recorded. The young man gave a faint, tired smile. That's because it doesn't belong to your world. A heavy silence followed. Outside the containment chamber, the heroes began debating quietly among themselves. This could be an alien invasion, or a mutation we've never seen before. If he can turn into that giant again, he's a national security risk. But he fought that creature. Did he? Or did he bring it here? Inside the chamber, the young man lowered his head slightly. He could hear them. Even through the glass. He didn't blame them. Any world would react this way. Then suddenly, his body stiffened. The blinking light on his chest flickered faster. Blink. 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 His eyes widened. Far away. Something moved. Not underground. Not in the sky, but deeper. a ripple in space itself. A disturbance between dimensions. His breathing grew tense. The scientists immediately noticed. What's happening? The young man slowly stood. His voice dropped to a grave whisper. They're getting closer. The researchers exchanged confused looks. Who? Someone asked. The young man stared toward the ceiling, toward the vast sky beyond the facility, beyond the planet. His voice carried a quiet dread. The Kaiju. He swallowed slowly. They followed me. The ground moved again. At first it was subtle, just a faint vibration beneath the streets of Musutafu, barely strong enough for anyone to notice. A passing truck, construction work somewhere in the distance. Nothing unusual for a modern city. But the tremors didn't stop. They came again, and again, each one slightly stronger than the last. Deep beneath the city's sprawling transit system, maintenance workers inside a subway tunnel suddenly froze as the walls groaned. Dust fell from the ceiling. One worker looked around nervously. Did you feel that? Another nodded slowly. Yeah, that wasn't a train. A distant rumble echoed through the tunnel like thunder rolling through stone. Then the ground shifted violently. Metal support beams bent with a screeching howl as part of the tunnel wall cracked open. Workers scrambled for the emergency exits as alarms began blaring through the underground system. Above ground, the city lights flickered. Traffic signals malfunctioned. Power grids across multiple districts registered sudden electromagnetic spikes. In a monitoring center miles away, technicians stared at their screens in confusion. That's impossible, one whispered. What is it? Another asked. The technician zoomed in on the readings. There's massive magnetic interference under Musutafu. How massive? The technician swallowed. Something the size of a skyscraper. At UA High School, the faculty conference room was unusually tense. Large digital displays covered the wall, showing maps of Musutafu layered with seismic readings, energy fluctuations, and satellite data. Several pro heroes stood around the table. Teachers, strategists, defenders of hero society. And at the center of the discussion stood a question no one could yet answer. Izawa rested his elbow on the table, tired eyes scanning the data. Let's summarize, he said calmly. An unidentified giant appeared from space last night. It turned into a human, and now the ground under the city is shaking. He looked at the others. Anyone want to tell me that's a coincidence? President Meek leaned back in his chair. Man, I hate coincidences. Across the table, another pro hero crossed their arms. You think that alien guy brought something with him? Aizawa didn't answer immediately. He simply studied the seismic patterns. The vibrations weren't random. They were moving. Slowly. Deliberately. Like something traveling beneath the city. Meanwhile, deep inside the government containment facility, the Ultraman host suddenly sat upright. The room lights flickered briefly. The scientists monitoring him immediately noticed the change in his readings. His brain activity just spiked. Energy levels rising. Inside the chamber, the young man gripped the edge of the bed. His breathing had changed. Sharp, uneasy. He closed his eyes for a moment and felt it. A deep vibration pulsing through the planet's crust. Not just movement, presence. Something massive, something ancient, and something wrong. His eyes opened slowly. No, he whispered. One of the researchers activated the intercom immediately. What's happening? The young man stood up. His voice trembled with quiet dread. It's it's already here. The scientists exchanged alarmed glances. What is? But the young man wasn't looking at them anymore. His gaze was fixed on the floor beneath his feet, as if he could see straight through the facility, into the earth itself. His mind raced through the possibilities. Kaiju often adapted to survive in hostile environments, but adapting this quickly, that was impossible. Unless his eyes widened. They've adjusted. The researchers frowned. Adjusted to what? He spoke slowly. To this world. His voice carried a chilling certainty. The kaiju that followed me has already adapted to your planet's gravity, atmosphere, and energy fields. A scientist's face went pale. You mean it's evolving? The young man nodded. That's what kaiju do. Outside the chamber, the facility trembled slightly. Another vibration. Stronger this time. Alarms briefly flickered across the control panels. Across the city, cracks began appearing in roads. Underground pipelines burst. Power grids surged violently with electromagnetic interference. But far below the streets of Musutafu, far deeper than any subway tunnel, something enormous moved through the darkness. The creature's body carved massive tunnels through solid bedrock, as if the earth itself were water. Stone melted around its passage. Heat radiated through the soil. The kaiju had traveled between worlds. And it had survived. Slowly, the creature stopped moving. Its massive body coiled beneath the foundations of the city, waiting, adapting, learning the strange physics of this new planet. And then, in the darkness, a colossal eye opened, glowing faintly in the deep earth. Ancient, hungry, awake. The first kaiju had arrived in the world of heroes. The city of Musutafu never saw it coming. For hours, the ground had trembled beneath the streets. Engineers blamed underground faults. Technicians blamed infrastructure damage. Officials blamed aftershocks from the strange meteor crash the night before. But none of them understood the truth. Something enormous was moving beneath the city. And then, it stopped. For a moment, everything went quiet. Traffic lights flickered back to normal. The vibrations ceased. The city exhaled in relief, until the ground exploded. The asphalt of a busy intersection shattered outward as if struck by a bomb. Concrete burst into the air. Cars flipped violently as the earth split open. A roar erupted from below. Not mechanical, not natural, something primal. From the depths of the earth, a massive shape erupted into the daylight. A colossal creature forced its way out of the ground, towering over the surrounding buildings as chunks of earth and metal rained down across the streets. People screamed. The creature rose to its full height. It was monstrous. Its body was armored in dark, jagged plates that looked like volcanic stone fused with living flesh. Steam hissed from vents along its spine. Its claws alone were larger than entire buses, and its glowing eye scanned the city with ancient hunger. Within seconds, emergency alerts spread across every broadcast network. Unidentified giant creature attacking Musutafu. Pro heroes responded immediately. Across the skyline, figures shot toward the scene like missiles. One hero with propulsion jets slammed into the creature's shoulder with explosive force. Another unleashed a torrent of flame. A third hero expanded their body into a towering giant, trying to grapple the monster's leg. The creature barely noticed. Its armored hide absorbed the attacks like rain against stone. The fire scorched its surface. but left no lasting damage. The jet-powered hero struck again with a sonic blast, powerful enough to level a building. The kaiju turned its head slowly. Then it swatted the hero out of the air like an insect. The hero crashed through the side of a nearby office tower, vanishing in a cloud of shattered glass. Panic spread across the battlefield. This thing's not taking damage. Evacuate the civilians. Get the heavy hitters here. Meanwhile, miles away inside the containment facility, alarms suddenly blared across every monitor. Seismic data spiked violently. The young man inside the chamber froze. His eyes widened. It's here. The scientists looked at their screens in horror. The kaiju had surfaced. On a large monitor, live drone footage showed the creature towering above the city skyline. The young man clenched his fists. They're trying to fight it. One scientist turned toward him. Well, that's what heroes do. The young man shook his head slowly. They don't understand what they're facing. Another violent tremor shook the facility. On the monitor, the kaiju unleashed a devastating roar that shattered windows across several city blocks. The heroes attacking it were being pushed back, some injured, some retreating. The young man stared at the screen. His chest light blinked faster. Blink, blink, blink. His voice dropped to a quiet decision. There's no time. The scientist turned back toward him. What do you mean? The young man looked directly at them. The only thing that can stop a kaiju. He paused. Is Ultraman. Before anyone could react, the small device on his chest erupted with light. A brilliant silver glow flooded the containment chamber. Energy surged outward like a miniature sun exploding inside the room. The scientists stumbled backward as alarms went completely wild. Energy spike. Containment failing. The young man raised his arm. The light intensified. His body dissolved into pure radiance. And in the next instant, a massive pillar of silver light shot upward through the facility roof and into the sky. Across Musutafu, civilians looked up in shock. The beam of light expanded, growing larger and larger, until suddenly, a giant figure materialized in the center of the city, 50 meters tall, silver and crimson armor gleaming in the sunlight. A glowing chest core pulsed with cosmic energy. Ultraman had arrived. The kaiju turned its massive head slowly. For the first time since emerging, the creature hesitated, because standing across the shattered skyline was something equal to its size, equal to its power. The heroes on the battlefield stared upward in stunned silence. One hero whispered in disbelief. That's the alien. Ultraman stepped forward. Each movement shook the streets. Glass shattered. Wind blasted outward from the sheer force of his presence. He raised his arms into a defensive stance. Across from him, the kaiju roared again. The sound echoed across the entire city. Two titans now stood in the middle of Musutafu. The creature charged first. Ultraman moved to meet it. And for the first time in the history of Hero Society, a kaiju battle had begun. The clash began with a shockwave. When the kaiju charged forward, its massive claws slammed into the pavement, tearing through the street like paper. Ultraman stepped into the attack, meeting the creature head-on as the two titans collided in the center of Musutafu. The impact shook the city. A thunderous boom echoed across several districts as their bodies crashed together, sending a violent gust of wind blasting through the streets below. Windows shattered. Traffic lights twisted. Cars flipped onto their sides. For the civilians still trapped in the city, it felt like the world itself had become a battlefield. Ultraman grabbed the kaiju's arm, trying to push the creature back. The monster roared and swung its tail like a wrecking ball. The tail smashed into a nearby office tower. The upper floors collapsed instantly, concrete and steel cascading into the street like a waterfall of debris. Below, pro-heroes rushed through the chaos. Move! Everyone move! Heroes with mobility quirks darted through the rubble, carrying civilians out of collapsing buildings. A gravity hero lifted chunks of falling concrete into the air while rescue teams guided people toward evacuation zones. Above them, the giants continued their brutal struggle. Ultraman twisted the kaiju's arm and delivered a powerful strike to its chest. The blow sent the creature stumbling backward into a row of skyscrapers. 3 buildings crumbled from the impact. Dust clouds erupted across the skyline. For a moment, it looked like the monster had been weakened, but then the kaiju rose again, slowly, unharmed. The creature's armored hide had barely cracked. Ultraman stepped back into a defensive stance. Something felt wrong. In his own universe, kaiju fought with brute strength and raw destructive instinct. But this creature was adjusting. Its movements were becoming sharper, faster, more deliberate. The kaiju lunged again. Ultraman blocked the claws, but the force pushed him backward several meters, his heels carving deep trenches through the asphalt. The heroes watching from the streets exchanged worried glances. Is that thing getting stronger? One hero wiped dust from his face. No, pointed upward. Look at him. Ultraman's chest light blinked. Blink, blink, blink. But the rhythm was faster than before. Too fast. Inside the giant form, the host felt it immediately. His energy reserves were draining, far faster than they should have been. Ultraman fired a beam of light from his arm, striking the kaiju square in the chest. The blast forced the creature backward, smoke rising from its armor. But within seconds, the smoke cleared. The monster growled, its body adjusting to the energy impact. It was learning, adapting to Ultraman's attacks. The host clenched his fists. That shouldn't be possible. Another roar erupted as the kaiju lunged again. This time it slammed into Ultraman's side, driving the giant hero straight through a commercial building. The structure collapsed instantly. Steel beams twisted as Ultraman crashed through the floors and into the street beyond. Dust swallowed the battlefield. Below, heroes struggled to keep evacuating civilians. This is getting worse. We can't clear the area fast enough. Another tremor shook the street as Ultraman rose from the rubble. He steadied himself. But something was clearly wrong. His movements had slowed. His breathing was heavier, and the light on his chest was flashing faster with every passing second. Blink, blink, blink. In the sky above, news helicopters circled the battlefield. Cameras captured every second of the Titanic fight. Across Japan, millions of people watched in stunned silence. Some cheered for the giant hero. Others stared in fear. But the Ultraman host could barely focus on the battle anymore. His mind raced through calculations. Atmospheric pressure, magnetic fields, planetary radiation. Everything was slightly different here. Not drastically, but enough to disrupt the delicate energy balance Ultraman relied on. This world's physics were draining him. And the kaiju, was adapting perfectly. The creature charged again. Ultraman barely blocked the strike in time. The impact forced him backward into the street again, cracking the pavement beneath his feet. The kaiju roared triumphantly. It had sensed the weakness. It attacked again, claws swinging faster now, forcing Ultraman onto the defensive. Another building collapsed behind them. Heroes below scrambled to escape the falling debris. Get back! This whole district is coming down. Ultraman staggered as another strike hit his shoulder. Inside the armor of light, the host felt the truth settling in. His energy timer was now flashing wildly. Blink, blink, blink. Warning signals echoed through his mind. At this rate, he wouldn't last long enough to finish the fight. He stepped back, breathing heavily as the kaiju circled him through the destroyed skyline. The host looked down at the blinking light on his chest, and for the first time since arriving in this world, a terrifying realization struck him. If another kaiju appeared, if another battle began, he might not survive it, because in this world, the light of Ultraman was fading far too quickly. The footage spread across the world within minutes. News helicopters had captured everything. The massive creature emerging from beneath Musutafu, the city collapsing beneath the weight of titans, and the impossible sight of a silver and red giant battling the monster in the middle of a modern city. Every major broadcast network replayed the footage, again, and again, and again. Across Japan, televisions glowed in living rooms, restaurants, subway stations, and crowded streets. Civilians stood frozen as the images unfolded before them. A kaiju towering over skyscrapers, heroes struggling to protect civilians, and the giant alien warrior fighting back against the monster. Some people watched with awe. Others watched with fear. Because no matter how heroic the figure looked, he was still something the world had never seen before. Inside a heavily secured government building in Tokyo, the mood was far less emotional. It was cold, calculated, strategic. A large conference table filled the center of a darkened room, surrounded by government officials, military advisors, and the leadership of the Hero Public Safety Commission. On the wall, a massive screen displayed the battle footage in slow motion, the kaiju's claws tearing through buildings. Ultraman blocking the strike. The shockwave that followed. One of the commission members leaned forward, fingers interlocked. So let me get this straight, he said quietly. A giant alien crashes onto our planet, turns into a human, and then transforms back into a 50-meter combat form. No one spoke. Another official spoke next. And we're supposed to believe this individual is friendly? A third member responded carefully. He fought the creature. Yes, the first official replied, but that doesn't make him safe. The footage switched to a scene of Ultraman slamming into a building during the battle. The building collapsed instantly. Dust engulfed the surrounding district. Thousands of civilians had been evacuated only moments before impact. One commission analyst spoke up. Property damage from the battle has already exceeded several billion yen. Another analyst added quietly, and that was only the first encounter. The room fell silent. Because everyone in that room understood the deeper implication. If one giant alien could appear on Earth, others could follow. The commission chairwoman finally spoke. Her voice was calm, but heavy. We are not dealing with a simple quirk user. She gestured toward the screen. This being is an extraterrestrial entity with power capable of destroying entire cities. One of the military advisors nodded, which means we must consider the possibility that he is not a hero. Another official spoke the words everyone was thinking. He may be a weapon. Across the table, a younger commission strategist frowned. But he risked his life fighting that creature. The older official responded immediately. Or he fought it because they were rivals. The strategist hesitated. We don't know that. Exactly, the official replied. And until we do, we must treat him as a potential threat. The chairwoman leaned forward slightly. Begin classification procedures. A technician typed commands into a tablet. The file appeared on the main screen. Subject designation, Ultraman. Threat level, unverified. Global security risk, under evaluation. The chairwoman continued. If this being truly comes from another universe, then it represents something unprecedented in human history. Her voice dropped slightly. An unprecedented power must always be controlled. The strategist looked uneasy. You're suggesting we capture him? The chairwoman didn't answer immediately. Instead, she spoke carefully. We will observe him first. But if the situation escalates, her gaze hardened. We will contain him. Meanwhile, far from the government chambers, far from the public eye, another group was watching the same footage. But their reaction was very different. Deep within the shadows of the underground villain world, a massive screen illuminated a dark room. On the screen, the Kaiju roared as Ultraman blocked its attack. A quiet chuckle echoed through the darkness. One of the villains watching spoke nervously. That thing is insane. Another villain leaned closer to the screen. You think the heroes can stop monsters like that? A third voice whispered. They barely stopped the last one. But the man sitting in the center of the room said nothing. He simply watched. Calmly. Patiently. The screen reflected across the shattered lenses covering his face. Behind the broken mask, dozens of unseen eyes observed the footage with deep fascination. Ultraman launching a beam attack. The Kaiju adapting. The giant hero struggling as his energy drained. The masked figure tilted his head slightly. Interesting, he murmured. The villains around him immediately went silent, because they all recognized that voice. The voice of the most dangerous villain in the world. All for one. He leaned back slowly in his chair, studying the glowing figure on the screen. A power not born from quirks. His fingers tapped lightly against the armrest. Yet strong enough to challenge a creature of that scale. He chuckled softly. A sound that carried quiet excitement. How very fascinating. On the screen, Ultraman's chest light blinked rapidly. All for One noticed it immediately and smiled beneath his mask, because he had just discovered something very important. Even a cosmic defender had limits, and that meant Ultraman could be studied, exploited, perhaps even controlled. The villain's voice dropped to a whisper. Welcome to our world, giant of light. The classroom fell silent the moment the video began. On the large digital screen at the front of the room, the footage flickered to life once again. The same footage that had already shaken the entire world. But this time, it was being studied by the next generation of heroes. Inside UA High School, Class 1A sat in their seats, watching the battle unfold. The Kaiju towered over the city like a living natural disaster. Its roar shook the speakers as buildings collapsed beneath its steps. Then the screen showed the moment that had stunned the entire planet. A silver and crimson giant rising to meet it. Ultraman. Even in the classroom, the scale of the battle felt overwhelming. Students leaned forward, eyes wide. Others stared in silence. The footage zoomed in as Ultraman blocked the Kaiju's attack, the impact creating a shockwave that ripped through nearby streets. Ejiro Kirishima clenched his fists with excitement. That was so manly. Denki Kaminari nodded rapidly. Dude, that's not just a hero, that's like a walking natural disaster. But not everyone was smiling. Momo Yaoyorozu watched carefully, her expression thoughtful. That level of power, she said quietly, is far beyond what most quirk users can produce. Another scene played. Ultraman leapt across the skyline, tackling the kaiju away from a cluster of buildings filled with civilians. But the collision destroyed half a city block. Concrete collapsed. Glass exploded outward. The classroom grew quiet again. Tenya Ida adjusted his glasses, his voice serious. Even when attempting to protect the city, the destruction is enormous. Katsuki Bakugo scoffed from his seat. Cheat, that's what happens when you fight monsters that big. But his eyes stayed locked on the screen, because even he couldn't deny what he was seeing. This wasn't just a powerful hero. This was something else entirely. The footage shifted to the moment Ultraman fired a beam of pure light, forcing the kaiju backward. The classroom lights reflected off the screen as the blast illuminated the entire city. For a moment, the room filled with quiet awe. Ochako Uraraka whispered softly. He still protected everyone, despite the chaos, despite the destruction. The giant had positioned himself between the monster and the civilians every time, almost instinctively, as if protecting people was simply part of his nature. But then came the moment that changed the mood of the room. The footage slowed. Ultraman's chest began blinking, a bright blue light, flashing steadily, again and again. The students leaned closer. Wait, Kaminari muttered. What's that light? Ida spoke carefully. It appears to be some kind of energy indicator. On screen, Ultraman staggered slightly as the battle continued. Even a being that powerful was getting tired. Mina Ashido blinked in surprise. So he has limits too? The realization spread through the room. This giant warrior, this cosmic protector, was not invincible. And somehow, that made him feel even more real. Aizawa stood at the front of the class, watching silently. His tired eyes studied every frame of the battle. Finally, he spoke. The world has relied on quirks for over a century. His voice was calm but serious. Heroes, villains, even entire societies are built around them. He paused, glancing toward the screen where Ultraman stood against the kaiju. But this, Aizawa folded his arms, is something entirely different. The classroom felt heavier now, because the question forming in everyone's mind was impossible to ignore. If quirks represented the next step in human evolution, then what exactly was Ultraman? A mutation? A cosmic life form? Or something even older? Todoroki finally spoke from his seat near the window. His voice was quiet, but he chose to protect people. That single statement lingered in the room, because whatever Ultraman was, his actions had been clear. He fought to defend the city. He shielded civilians. He risked his life. Kirishima nodded firmly. That's a hero. Bakugo rolled his eyes but didn't argue. Meanwhile, in the back corner of the classroom, one student had barely moved since the footage began. Izuku Midoriya. His notebook was already open, page after page filled with frantic scribbles. Observations, energy patterns, combat movements. His pencil moved faster and faster. 50 meters tall, but still agile. He muttered under his breath. The beam attack, possibly a stored energy release. Chest indicator might function like a time limit or energy core. The others barely noticed, but Midoriya's mind was racing. He replayed the footage again and again in his head. Every movement, every strike. Every moment Ultraman positioned himself between the Kaiju and the civilians. Midoriya's eyes lit up with fascination. This is incredible. Quirks had always been part of human biology. Genetic. Inherited. But Ultraman was something else entirely. A protector from beyond Earth itself. Midoriya flipped to another page, sketching the blinking chest light. If his energy runs out after a certain time, his pencil paused. Then that means he fights knowing he might lose. That thought hit him harder than anything else, because that meant Ultraman wasn't just powerful. He was brave. Midoriya leaned back slightly, staring at the paused image on the classroom screen. The silver giant standing alone against a monster. A quiet spark ignited in his mind. A question. What if heroes could learn from him? What if humanity could understand how beings like Ultraman protected entire worlds? Midoriya's pencil began moving again. More notes. More theories. More questions. And deep inside his mind, a single thought continued to grow stronger. Because while the world debated whether Ultraman was a threat, Izuku Midoriya had already reached a very different conclusion. He wasn't afraid of the giant. He wanted to understand him. And from that moment forward, Izuku Midoriya began researching Ultraman with an obsession that would soon change everything. The League of Villains convened in the shadowed depths of an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Musutafu, their faces illuminated only by the flickering glow of monitors. Outside, the city still smoldered from the previous Kaiju attack. Streets remained cordoned off, emergency sirens wailed, and debris floated like the remnants of a shattered dream. But inside this clandestine room, the chaos of the city was not a tragedy. It was an opportunity. Tomura Shigaraki leaned against a steel column, his fingers brushing the tips of his decayed hands as he studied the footage projected on the screens. The images of Ultraman towering over the Kaiju, the earth trembling beneath titanic feet, and the hero's desperate efforts to shield civilians, all of it played over and over. The world thinks heroes can handle this, Shigaraki muttered, his voice low and cold. But look at them. Look at how fragile they really are. Dobby, perched on a crate, exhaled smoke through his nostrils, eyes narrowing. Every time one of those monsters shows up, the pro-heroes scramble. Buildings fall. Civilians die. The whole system is exposed for what it is. Weak. Himiko Toga tilted her head, a sinister smile spreading across her face. And if we guided them, led the chaos just a little further, we could watch the hero society collapse entirely. The monitors flickered again, and the footage of Ultraman's flash of light, the beam attack that had forced the Kaiju back, replayed. Even the villains recognized it. This wasn't quirk-based power. This wasn't something a human could reach. Ultraman was different, alien, untouchable. Twice, Shigaraki's fingers drummed against his arm. And that's why we can't just fight him. We need him, contained, or harnessed. Kurogiri's face appeared from the shadows, his form twisting unnaturally. If we could capture even a fraction of his energy, imagine what we could do. The power to level cities. The power to reshape the world order. No more heroes. No more rules. A quiet murmur ran through the group. Some, like Twice, grinned nervously at the idea of facing such a challenge. Others, like Spinner, tightened their fists with anticipation. But then a sharp tone cut through the room, a high-pitched signal, otherworldly in its resonance. Everyone froze. "What is that?" Toga whispered, her voice trembling with excitement. Kurogiri's eyes narrowed. "It's a transmission. From space." Shigaraki straightened, his crimson eyes glinting with newfound intensity. "Space. That means they're coming." A map on one of the monitors lit up with small blinking signals, like beacons scattering across the dark void above Earth. Each one pulsed in rhythm with the eerie, alien signal. Dabi exhaled sharply. Not just one, more monsters. Multiple. They're being called here. Shigaraki's grin widened, stretching across his scarred face. "Perfect. If the kaiju keep appearing, the world will bend to chaos. Heroes will fall into panic. Civilians will lose faith. And in that vacuum, we strike." Toga clapped her hands together, the sound sharp in the tense silence. "I can't wait. More monsters, more chaos, more blood. The heroes won't know what hit them." Twice shuffled nervously, a conflicted expression crossing his face. "But Ultraman, he's still out there. He's strong. He'll fight them." "Exactly," Shigaraki said, tilting his head, a dangerous glint in his eyes. "Which is why we don't attack him. Yet. We watch. We wait. And when the right moment comes, we take everything from him. His power. His secret. His world." Kurogiri's mist swirled, casting eerie shadows across the room. "And if more kaiju arrive, we'll have a perfect storm. Heroes overwhelmed, cities in ruins, and us, standing in the wreckage, ready to rebuild as we choose." The signal pulsed again, and a sense of anticipation filled the air, an invisible hand reaching from the stars, tugging the strings of fate toward chaos. Shigaraki's voice dropped, almost a whisper, yet carrying through the tense air. "Ultraman came to protect this world. But he's also opened a door, and we're about to step through it." Outside, the city continued to burn in the aftermath of the first battle. But far above, beyond the blue sky, the universe answered the call. Silent, immense, and unstoppable. More kaiju were on the way. And in that moment, the League of Villains didn't just see destruction. They saw possibility, power, revolution. And somewhere in the shadows, Shigaraki's grin promised a future the world had never imagined. Because this was no longer a simple battle between heroes and monsters. This was the beginning of a war that would test the limits of everything the world knew. And beyond it, the stars themselves were listening. The streets of Musutafu were alive with whispers. Television screens flickered in shop windows. Smartphones buzzed in every hand. And social media feeds flooded with images of a towering silver figure standing over the rubble of the city. Some called him a savior. Others, a harbinger of destruction. Ultraman, the cosmic protector who had emerged from another universe, had become the center of a growing debate, and the world was watching. Inside the bustling halls of UA High, students crowded around monitors, replaying footage of the Kaiju battle. The sound of collapsing buildings, roaring monsters, and Ultraman's radiant energy pulses echoed through the videos. Yet even amid the chaos, many students couldn't look away. They saw courage beyond comprehension, a being unbound by quirk or human limits, facing a threat that dwarfed even the strongest pro heroes. "I can't believe someone like that exists," whispered Uraraka, her voice a mix of awe and fear. He's not even human, and yet he fights to protect us?" Bakugo snorted, slamming a fist into his palm. "Protects? He's a walking disaster zone. Look at the city. Heroes had to clean up after him." Meanwhile, Midoriya sat quietly, notebooks stacked around him, pen poised. His green eyes darted between the footage and his sketches of Ultraman, analyzing every movement, every flicker of energy. Quirks represent human evolution. But him, what does he represent? He muttered to himself. If humanity can't produce someone like that, maybe there's more to heroism than I understood. The debate was mirrored in the professional circles. In hero offices and strategy rooms, leaders argued over how to respond. Some pro heroes wanted to collaborate, hoping to learn from Ultraman, or at least coordinate to prevent further destruction. Others advocated for containment, worried that a being of such unimaginable power could upset the delicate balance of society. "Should we even be trusting him?" a senior hero asked during a closed meeting. "He saved civilians, yes. But if a kaiju shows up tomorrow, will he save us again, or just leave us to our fate?" Another hero countered, voice tense. And what of the kaiju he fought? The sheer force of that being. We couldn't have stopped it alone. He did. We saw it. Even as debate raged, Ultraman observed quietly from a vantage above the city, perched on the edge of a broken skyscraper. His host, still human in form beneath the glowing armor, scanned the streets below. He studied the heroes, not their feats, but their hesitations, their strategies, the fleeting glances of doubt and fear that flickered behind their confident faces. Something began to crystallize in his mind. The hero society, with all its pomp and titles, all its rules and hierarchy. It was flawed, not malevolent, not cowardly, but fragile, dependent on systems that couldn't always withstand the extraordinary. He realized that while humanity revered heroes, it also relied on them as crutches, placing faith in symbols rather than principles. His inner voice echoed quietly. If this is how they operate, then how will they survive when the unimaginable becomes reality? Back at UA, Midoriya's fascination deepened into obsession. He cross-referenced Ultraman's movements with known quirk mechanics, calculating energy outputs, reaction speeds, and combat efficiency. He's not a quirk user, but his methods, his tactics, they could teach us something, he murmured, pencil scratching furiously. If I understand him, maybe I can understand heroism itself. Bakugo, catching a glimpse of Midoriya's notes, frowned. You're wasting time fantasizing over some giant alien. Heroes don't need aliens. They need grit, skill, and guts. Midoriya shook his head, eyes locked on a frame showing Ultraman crouched among the rubble, light radiating from his body like a beacon. It's not just about power, he replied softly. It's about responsibility, about seeing what others cannot. That is what makes someone truly heroic. The city outside continued to pulse with tension. Some citizens posted messages of hope, declaring Ultraman a guardian angel sent to watch over them. Others warned of the danger his presence represented, claiming that wherever he appeared, destruction inevitably followed. News anchors debated endlessly, framing him as both savior and threat, and every opinion carried weight. And all the while, Ultraman observed, silent, calculating. Every hero he saw, every reaction, every decision. They added pieces to a puzzle he didn't yet fully understand. The humans were brave, yes, but flawed, imperfect, yet still capable of great courage, if they could see past fear. High above the city, the glow of his eyes reflected against the shattered skyline. He had come to protect, to save. And yet, as he studied this society of heroes and humans, he realized something profound, unsettling even. This world is not ready for me, and I may not be ready for it either. As dusk settled over Musutafu, the streets whispered, citizens argued, and heroes debated. But one young boy, alone with his notebooks and sketches, made a quiet decision. He would understand Ultraman. Not just the battles he fought, but the principles he embodied. Because in a world where heroism was measured by quirks and fame, the arrival of a cosmic protector challenged everything they thought they knew. And for Midoriya, it was the beginning of a journey that would reshape his understanding of courage, power, and responsibility. And somewhere beyond the skyline, a silver figure stood vigilant, watching the humans who called themselves heroes, learning, analyzing, and preparing for the impossible challenges yet to come. The early morning sun glinted off the steel and glass skyline of Shinjuku, casting long shadows over streets that were suddenly empty, eerily silent. That quiet shattered with a thunderous roar, a vibration that rattled windows and sent car alarms screaming into the sky. Another kaiju had emerged, towering and grotesque, its massive limbs smashed through buildings with every step, tearing the cityscape apart as if it were made of cardboard. But this time, Ultraman did not stand alone. In a coordinated strike that seemed to defy the chaos of the moment, the pro-heroes arrived. Quirks blazing, strategy sharp, courage absolute. Endeavor's flames carved a path of containment, while hawks zipped through the air, pulling civilians to safety with the precision of a well-oiled machine. Midoriya, Bakugo, and Todoroki emerged from the flanks. Their abilities focused not just on attack, but on synergy, every move calculated, every strike complementing Ultraman's radiant assaults. From the sky, Ultraman's glowing form descended like a silver meteor, energy crackling across his body. He landed with a resonant thud, sending a shockwave through the nearby streets. His eyes scanned the battlefield, locking onto the kaiju as it roared, challenging the heroes who dared to stand against it. For the first time, quirk and cosmic power intertwined in a spectacle that blurred the line between the human and the superhuman. Midoriya shouted to the team, coordinating their attacks. Shoto, hit its flank with a concentrated ice stream, while I go for a joint uppercut. Hawks, keep civilians moving south. No one left behind. Each command triggered a cascade of movements, the city itself becoming a chessboard of chaos, strategy, and raw power. The kaiju's massive tail swung, flattening a row of buildings. But Todoroki's ice wall stopped the debris mid-air, a brilliant testament to precision control. Ultraman charged his specium ray, timing it with a synchronized quirk burst from Bakugo's explosions. The combined force struck the monster squarely, sending tremors that echoed through the city. For a moment, the kaiju faltered, staggered under the weight of human ingenuity amplified by alien power. Yet even in the midst of victory, there was unease. Every strike, Every clash of cosmic and quirk energy revealed a terrifying truth. The kaiju attacks were not isolated incidents. Ultraman's presence had awakened something, perhaps an entire wave of monsters waiting beyond the atmosphere, drawn by his light, or perhaps by signals unknown even to human minds. As the battle raged, the heroes began to understand the nuances of this new kind of combat. They learned to anticipate Ultraman's energy pulses, timing their quirk outputs to maximize effectiveness without overexerting themselves. Explosions and beams lit up the skyline like a fireworks display of devastation and hope intertwined. Streets that moments before had been shattered now became corridors of tactical coordination, with Ultraman at the center, guiding, shielding, and striking with the precision of a cosmic general. In the midst of the chaos, Hawks observed the broader picture from above, noting the patterns in the kaiju's movements. "They're learning," he muttered under his breath. "Just like he said, they adapt faster than we expect." Each monster seemed to recognize not just physical attacks, but the strategic intent behind them. The balance of power was no longer just raw strength. It was intelligence, coordination, and adaptability. On the ground, civilians huddled in makeshift shelters, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and awe. They had come to understand something fundamental in these few hours. Heroism, whether quirk-powered or alien, relied not solely on strength, but on unity. The people watched as Ultraman and the heroes fought side by side, a living testament to what could be achieved when power was wielded with purpose and collaboration. But the victory was bittersweet. As the dust settled and the kaiju retreated, its massive form sinking back toward the outskirts of the city, reports from across the globe began to flood in. Another attack here, a tremor there. The frequency of these events was increasing. The world's perception shifted from isolated threat to looming crisis. The light of one Silver Guardian was powerful, but even Ultraman could not stand alone against a tide of monsters that seemed determined, relentless, and coordinated in ways humanity had never encountered. Above the city, Ultraman hovered briefly, eyes scanning the horizon, his form radiating both reassurance and warning. He was no longer just an unknown savior. He was part of a new paradigm, a force that demanded adaptation from heroes, governments, and the world itself. And somewhere beyond the atmosphere, unseen but very much aware, the signals continued to pulse, summoning more kaiju. The pattern was clear. The attacks were escalating, and the delicate balance between cosmic power and human strategy was about to be tested on a scale that no one, not even Ultraman, had fully anticipated. The world had learned one undeniable truth. Heroes and aliens together could fight back, but kaiju were no longer random anomalies. They were the beginning of a new reality, and the next attack would show just how fragile the power balance truly was. The skyline trembled, sirens blared, and the battle for Earth's survival had only just entered its next, far more perilous chapter. The late afternoon sun slanted across UA High's training grounds, illuminating the scattered debris from the kaiju battle that had rocked the city earlier. Ultraman stood apart from the other heroes, his glowing form slightly dimmed now that the fight was over, but still radiating a quiet, unwavering presence. He observed the students and professionals alike, noting the way they held themselves, some with admiration, others with barely concealed resentment. In his own universe, heroism had always been simple. Protect all life. Sacrifice without expectation. It was not about rankings, fame, or popularity. It was a duty that demanded nothing but courage. Here, however, things felt different. The moment his attacks had been broadcast, applause and accolades followed. Social media exploded with praise. Rankings soared, and yet, even among those he had fought alongside, Ultraman could sense something unsettling. Pride, competition, envy, the hallmarks of this world's heroes were entwined with their humanity, but in a way that made Ultraman uneasy. Midoriya approached, notebook in hand, eyes wide with awe. I've I've never seen power like yours, he said, voice trembling. But it's more than just strength. You inspire people, and it's terrifying how much it changes them. Ultraman's gaze softened, though the light in his eyes carried a hint of melancholy. In my world, he said slowly, his voice deep and resonant, we do not expect gratitude. Protecting life is not heroic because people cheer. It is heroic because it must be done. Yet here, heroism seems measured by applause, by ranks, by influence. Does that make the people you protect truly safe, or merely entertained? From across the grounds, Bakugo scowled, crossing his arms. You're saying we're weak because we care about reputation. You think your cosmic justice is better than what we do every day? His tone was defensive, charged with the pride of a hero who had fought and bled to earn his place. Ultraman turned his gaze toward him, calm but intense. I do not judge you for your pride, young hero, but I wonder, if a disaster strikes when no one is watching, would the same courage remain? His words, simple yet cutting, left a weighty silence between them. Ochako, watching from nearby, shifted uneasily. But isn't heroism about adapting to the world you live in? Rankings, fame, they help motivate, help people trust heroes. Her voice was gentle, but she too could feel the tension radiating from Ultraman. The alien giant's presence was a mirror, reflecting what this society had become, forcing everyone to question their own motivations. Ultraman's thoughts drifted further, beyond the students' arguments, to the larger implications. The Kaiju attacks were not isolated. They were escalating, more frequent, more devastating. And yet, the heroes of this world, as capable as they were still humans bound by pride, limitations, and societal expectations. Could they rise to meet an enemy that did not play by any human rule? Could they protect the innocent when glory and rank complicated every decision? A flash of movement drew Ultraman's attention. Midoriya had returned to his research, scribbling furiously in his notebook, eyes wide with fascination. He was obsessively studying every movement, every beam, every tactical choice Ultraman had made. And in that obsession, Ultraman saw something familiar, the spark of true heroism, untarnished by ego, driven by understanding. It was small, but it was there. Yet, even that spark could not quiet the doubts gnawing at him. He looked out over the city, the damaged streets stretching into the horizon. Rescue efforts were ongoing, but destruction lingered. Civilians were safe for now, but the underlying fragility of this world's hero system weighed on him. Was this a society worth saving? Could the humans of this world rise to the challenges that awaited them? Or would the next kaiju expose cracks that even his cosmic power could not mend? Shoto, who had been silently observing, finally spoke, voice low. You don't trust us. Ultraman's eyes glowed brighter for a brief moment. It is not a matter of trust. It is a matter of principle. I protect life, not reputation. I measure heroism by deeds, not applause. And in this world, the measure of a hero seems unstable. A distant rumble echoed faintly, reminding them all that peace was temporary. The next threat could arrive at any moment, and Ultraman, standing above it all, was caught in an internal struggle as potent as any physical battle. His light, powerful and unwavering, now carried the weight of moral uncertainty. He took a deep breath, energy flowing along his form, illuminating the city with a soft, steady glow. "I must understand this world," he said finally, more to himself than anyone else. For its people, for its heroes, for the chance to do what must be done, even when no one is watching. And as the sun dipped lower behind the horizon, casting long shadows over the training grounds, the question remained: what truly defined a hero in a world where courage and ambition were so intricately entwined? A shadow moved at the edge of the city, a reminder that the answers Ultraman sought would soon be tested, not in theory, but in battle. And when that day came, the measure of heroism would be revealed in fire, smoke, and light. The room was quiet, almost unnaturally so, save for the faint hum of equipment and the distant rumble of the city beyond. Midoriya's eyes were wide, notebook clutched tightly to his chest, his mind racing faster than his fingers could capture. Across from him, the host of Ultraman stood tall, ordinary in appearance, yet carrying the presence of something far beyond comprehension. The air between them seemed to vibrate with latent energy, a tension both subtle and immense, as if two worlds had collided in a single moment. Midoriya's voice trembled, a mix of awe and determination. "I've studied heroes all my life, but you're not like any of them. Your power, it's beyond anything I imagined. How do you choose to act?" The host's gaze softened, though the alien presence behind him radiated a quiet authority, a weight that felt like gravity itself. "Power," he said, his voice steady and resonant, "is meaningless without purpose. In my world, heroism is not measured by rankings, by applause, or by fear. It is measured by one simple rule: protect life. Every life, without exception." Midoriya's brow furrowed, eyes narrowing with the intensity of his thoughts. But here, heroism, it's complicated. Some heroes fight for fame, others for rankings, some for personal ideals. Is it possible for someone to be heroic in spite of those flaws? The host paused, considering the question. The glow from his eyes flickered faintly, reflecting the tension in the young hero's gaze. "Heroism must transcend the individual," he said finally. "It must rise above species, above circumstance. A human can be heroic, yes, but so can a cosmic entity. What matters is the intent, the will to protect, even when there is no reward, no recognition, no guarantee of survival." Midoriya leaned forward, almost unable to contain his curiosity. "So, anyone could be a hero? Even someone small, weak, or unremarkable?" The host's gaze sharpened, and for a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. "True heroism," he said, "does not consider strength as the defining factor. It considers courage, sacrifice, and the choice to act in the face of despair." His words hung heavy in the air, filling the room with the weight of truth that Midoriya had only glimpsed in fragments before. Midoriya's eyes shone, a fire ignited in his chest. "So, even if I'm just one person, even if I'm not super strong, I can still make a difference." A faint glow emanated from the host, subtle but undeniable, as if the very air around him was acknowledging the sincerity of the boy's question. Yes, the host replied softly, and in that sincerity, I sensed something familiar, something powerful within you, Midoriya, a light not unlike my own. You carry it willingly, not as a weapon, but as a promise. The words struck Midoriya like a bolt of lightning. He clutched his notebook, his thoughts tumbling over one another. A light? Like yours? He whispered. You mean I have the same kind of courage? The host's presence seemed to shift, more palpable now, almost alive. It is not the same light. It is your own, but it shines brightly, fueled by determination, by empathy, by the refusal to let others suffer when you could act. That is why I observe you. Midoriya's heart raced. He felt both exhilarated and small, aware that the host's power could obliterate cities in an instant, yet inspired because the same power recognized something in him, something human, fragile, but resilient. Then, if I train, if I push myself, could I truly be a hero worthy of this world? The host inclined his head, eyes steady and luminous. Training matters. Growth matters. But never forget this. Heroism is not a goal. It is a choice. Every time you act, every time you step forward when others hesitate, that choice defines you far more than any strength ever could. A distant tremor shook the room as the city beyond whispered of new disturbances, reminding them both that peace was fleeting. Yet, in that moment, the weight of cosmic and human power intertwined, an understanding forming between alien and human. Midoriya's determination pulsed with energy, a spark that mirrored the host's own radiant essence. I understand, Midoriya said, voice firm despite the awe in his eyes. It's not about being the strongest. It's about choosing to act, no matter the odds, no matter who watches. That is what makes a hero. The host's light flared briefly, a silent acknowledgement, a subtle nod to the potential he saw in Midoriya. And in that choice, he said, you have already begun to walk a path not all can follow. Remember this, young hero. Even in worlds where hope seems small, even when darkness grows, courage is universal. It transcends worlds. As the hum of the city returned, Midoriya stood taller, notebook clutched like a talisman. He understood something profound, not just about power, but about responsibility, about the fragile brilliance of heroism in a universe that could be both cruel and beautiful. And from the host's perspective, the alien warrior felt a faint resonance, a connection that suggested the boy might one day illuminate, not just a city, but a world. But the distant tremors hinted that the next test was already on its way. And in that moment of quiet revelation, the seeds of an extraordinary alliance had been sown, one that could shape the fate of both human and cosmic defenders alike. The laboratory was a maze of glass, steel, and blinking consoles, each panel awash in a cold blue glow that reflected off the floor in long, sterile streaks. Scientists moved with a cautious precision, their faces illuminated by the soft hum of machinery that tried and failed to contain the energy radiating from the room's center. Ultraman's host stood at the edge of the containment field, calm yet radiating a power that seemed almost too vast for the instruments around him. Every pulse of his presence sent subtle vibrations through the metal floor, and yet the team pressed on, driven by curiosity and a dangerous mix of ambition. Readings are off the charts, one scientist murmured, voice tight with excitement and fear. The energy, It's unlike anything we've measured. This isn't just quirk level power. It's cosmic. Another, adjusting the containment controls, frowned. We need to be careful. Even a small miscalculation could. A sudden spike cut him off. The energy meter screeched, dials twisting beyond their limits, and a low hum evolved into a deep, resonant pulse that shook the lab. Papers fluttered to the floor. Screens flickered with static, showing glimpses of impossible colors, of light bending in ways that made the edges of reality itself seem thin. Ultraman's host lifted his hand slightly, observing the fluctuation with a measured calm. The barrier between our worlds. It is weakening, he said quietly. The words carried a weight that silenced the room. Scientists froze, understanding for the first time that this was no ordinary experiment. They were not merely studying a hero. They were probing a force capable of ripping the fabric of their universe. Containment's failing, the lead scientist said, voice shaking. If we don't stabilize it now, before anyone could finish, the energy field erupted outward, a radiant wave that sent consoles clattering and alarms blaring. The walls of the laboratory seemed to breathe, stretching as if reality itself were being pulled apart. And then, with a deafening crack that shook every molecule in the air, a portal tore open in the center of the room. It was massive, a gaping wound of light and shadow that stretched toward infinity, swirling with colors the human eye could barely comprehend. Through the roiling currents of energy, something moved, something colossal, unseen yet undeniably present. The scientists could feel it, a pressure unlike any force they had ever encountered. Their hearts pounded. Some stumbled backward, unable to breathe, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of what had just manifested. One voice, a small, incredulous whisper, escaped from this chaos. It's bigger than any kaiju we've ever imagined. The host of Ultraman stepped forward, eyes glowing faintly, scanning the portal with a mixture of concern and recognition. It is not of your world, he said. His voice cut through the panic like a blade, calm yet heavy with meaning. And it waits beyond the veil, waiting to step through. Scientists scrambled, frantically pressing buttons and waving their arms. One shouted, "Shut it down! Shut it!" But the portal pulsed again, responding to something beyond human comprehension. A deep rumble emanated from the swirling void, a vibration that resonated through bones and consciousness alike. In that moment, the lab felt impossibly small, insignificant in the shadow of the unseen force lurking just beyond. This energy, another scientist stammered, voice rising above the alarm. It's alive. It's thinking. The host's eyes narrowed. It senses Ultraman. It recognizes him. Whatever lies beyond will not ignore his presence, or yours. His tone carried both warning and gravity, a silent command that the humans could only half understand. Then, as if to prove the truth of his words, the portal's light flared violently, and the unseen being within stirred. The air thickened, and the laboratory itself seemed to buckle under the strain. Dust fell from the ceilings. Instruments shattered under the resonance of something far beyond kaiju-level threat. One of the younger scientists froze, staring into the glowing vortex. It's waiting. For him, she whispered. Waiting for Ultraman. The host nodded, a faint tension in his posture. The world does not know what is coming. The balance of power is shifting. And this is only the beginning. Outside, the city lights flickered, oblivious to the dimensional ripple that now pulsed through their world. Inside the lab, the team faced a terrifying realization. They had opened a doorway to something far larger, far older, and far more dangerous than any threat humanity had ever encountered. And as the portal continued to churn, deep in the unknown, something massive shifted, stretching, awakening, preparing to step into a world that was not ready. Ultraman's host stared into the vortex, a single thought echoing in the silence that followed the chaos. This experiment had been a mistake. A door had been opened, and beyond it, something ancient and immense had begun to stir. The camera of the narrative lingers on the portal, swirling violently as the hum of energy builds, promising a threat that dwarfs anything before. The air trembles. The next moment, the world will face a force that no hero, no matter how powerful, can face alone. The screen fades to black, leaving only the echo of the rumbling portal, and a chilling question hangs in the air. What waits on the other side? A low, almost imperceptible vibration hummed through the abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, a signal that something far more dangerous than any kaiju had begun to stir. Shadows stretched across the cracked concrete walls, twisting unnaturally as if obeying a will unseen. At the center, a figure draped in darkness leaned against a rusted steel pillar. All for one. His presence alone seemed to absorb the faint light around him, casting a cold void over the room. Every small movement was deliberate, measured, a predator's grace in a human form. Imagine it, he whispered, voice low, almost intimate, as holographic images flickered across the air in front of him. Kaiju attacks, cities reduced to rubble, heroes pushed to the brink. All that power, all that fear, channeled through me. His fingers traced the shimmering projections of Ultraman mid-battle, his expression unreadable. If I could harness it, if I could take the source, no hero, no matter how strong, would ever stand against me. Around him, minor villains scurried like insects, their eyes wide, excitement and fear warring within them. Some were eager to provoke more kaiju attacks, seeing chaos as opportunity. Others hesitated, sensing the depths of the game they were being drawn into. Do you understand? All for One asked, his gaze slicing across the assembled group. These monsters are not random. They are tools, instruments of change. Each attack, each collapse of the hero system brings us closer to something unimaginable. One young villain, voice trembling yet eager, piped up. You mean we can make heroes fall? Make society break? All for One's smile was thin, chilling. Not break, transform. The world believes in rankings, fame, recognition, but those are illusions. True power, true control, lies in the hands of the one who can seize what even the universe fears. Outside, far above, clouds churned unnaturally, as if the sky itself were responding to some subtle signal. Distant cityscapes glimmered under the last rays of sunlight, oblivious to the carefully orchestrated chaos being set into motion. The minor villains were pawns, but even they could feel the weight of the unseen forces aligning, the sense that every kaiju unleashed carried the fingerprints of intelligence. Meanwhile, far below, Ultraman's host sensed it. The ripple in the air, the subtle distortion of space. It was too deliberate, too precise to be random. He tilted his head, scanning the cityscape, muscles coiled, energy rippling faintly around him. They are being guided, he murmured, voice low, carrying both caution and resolve. Someone in this world is orchestrating them. In that instant, the host's eyes glowed brighter, reflecting the lingering images of destruction from earlier battles. Each kaiju had been a test, a probe into the capabilities of the heroes. Each disaster had revealed weakness, hesitation, flaws in coordination, and now someone was exploiting those flaws, crafting a battlefield where Ultraman himself might become a weapon rather than a savior. Back in the warehouse, All for One's voice resonated with a dangerous calm. Coordination, strategy, misdirection. Let them think they are heroes. Let them believe they have the advantage. Every hero who faces these monsters grows stronger, yes, but stronger in ways I can manipulate. He paused, eyes narrowing at a new projection, this one showing Ultraman standing alone amidst a devastated street. And the moment I reach them, I will take it all. A subordinate hesitated. But Ultraman isn't human. How can we... All for One's smile widened, almost a shadow of amusement. Exactly. He is perfect. A being whose power transcends species. If I can bend it, even for an instant, every human hero, every quirk, every symbol of society's strength will pale in comparison. The room seemed to grow colder, heavier, the weight of his ambition pressing down on everyone present. And far above the city, Ultraman moved, eyes scanning, senses alert. A realization flickered across his mind, a faint but undeniable pattern in the chaos. The monsters were not random. Every rampage, every strategic strike against infrastructure, every clash with heroes, someone was guiding them, and that someone had intentions that went beyond mere destruction. As night fell, the city glimmered with scattered lights, unaware of the invisible hand plotting against it. All for One raised a hand toward the ceiling, fingers curling as if holding the world in his grasp. Prepare the next phase, he commanded. The game has begun, and soon, the ultimate power will be mine. The scene pulls back, revealing both the sprawling city and the distant horizon, where clouds churn with an unnatural energy. Somewhere in the shadows, the signal that controls the monsters pulses again, a silent drumbeat of impending chaos. Ultraman's host senses it, tension coiling in his chest, and the screen cuts to black with a single, chilling thought lingering in the air. Someone is guiding the kaiju, and they are playing for everything. The city's skyline shimmered in the early morning light, a fragile illusion of peace stretched thin over concrete and steel. Ultraman stood silently atop a half-collapsed skyscraper, surveying the streets below. Smoke curled from ruptured streets, sirens wailing faintly in the distance. He had fought, protected, and saved countless lives. But now, for the first time, the eyes of those he had defended looked upon him with suspicion instead of gratitude. From the shadows of a government research vessel docked just offshore, sensors hummed and lights blinked with a cold precision. A specialized task force, cloaked in authority, moved with quiet efficiency. Their mission: capture Ultraman, analyze the cosmic energy that flowed through him, and weaponize it. Orders were clear, but morality was absent. Inside the command center, a high-ranking official's voice sliced through the static. Deploy the containment drones. Keep him immobilized, but avoid direct casualties. He is an asset, not an enemy. The first drones launched, sleek and metallic, skimming the air with unnatural speed. Ultraman's eyes tracked their movement, a flash of irritation crossing his alien features. He raised his hand, sensing their energy signatures, and prepared to respond, not with aggression, but with the inevitability of a protector forced into defense. Meanwhile, on the ground, Heroes arrived in numbers, their quirk powers glowing brightly, their capes and costumes fluttering in the wind. But the unity they had shown against the kaiju now splintered. Some aimed to restrain Ultraman, believing in the government's orders. Others hesitated, admiration and doubt fighting within them. "Stop!" shouted one young hero, quirk flickering nervously as he hovered in midair. "He's saved our city before. He's not our enemy." But others shook their heads, hands glowing with energy ready to strike. "Orders are orders. We can't risk him turning against us, or worse, falling into the wrong hands." Ultraman's gaze swept across the divided forces, his sense of betrayal deepening. This world, with all its heroes and laws, was not what he had imagined. The people he had fought to protect were now instruments of control, and even those he respected wavered at the line between trust and obedience. And then, the ocean responded. From the horizon, a deep, resonant thrum vibrated through the water, growing louder, unstoppable. Waves rose unnaturally, colliding with one another, sending plumes of spray high into the morning sky. The heroes, distracted by the conflict above, barely noticed the water darkening, the surface shifting as if alive. A massive kaiju swarm erupted from the depths, their silhouettes breaking the sunlight like jagged shadows. Colossal limbs shattered docked ships, jaws wide with predatory hunger. Tentacles, spines, and armored plates glittered ominously, each creature larger and more menacing than the last. The swarm moved with terrifying coordination, a force no single hero could handle alone. Ultraman's chest glowed faintly, a pulse of energy rippling outward. He knew immediately the swarm was no random attack. It was timed, perfectly calculated, and designed to exploit the cracks in the alliance, the fractures in trust. Heroes hesitated, uncertainty visible in every flicker of their quirk powers, every nervous glance. "Everyone, focus!" Ultraman's voice carried across the chaos, authoritative yet filled with a weight of frustration. "These creatures are coming for all of us. We cannot fight each other now." A young hero faltered, eyes wide as a kaiju's massive claw rose behind them. Ultraman extended a hand, energy flaring as he intercepted the strike, his cosmic power meeting the creature with a deafening shockwave. Concrete crumbled, debris flying like rain around them. Yet Ultraman remained calm, precise, a figure of steadfast resolve amid confusion. But betrayal is a toxin that spreads quickly. The drones struck simultaneously, attempting containment, and heroes who had been unsure now lunged forward, dividing their attention between restraint and defense. Ultraman's movements became a dance of necessity, evading, deflecting, and protecting simultaneously. The city shook under the combined weight of kaiju attacks and human conflict. Above, the sky darkened, clouds swirling as if echoing the chaos below. The government faction watched through reinforced windows, calculating, detached, unaware, or perhaps unconcerned, about the true peril approaching. Their ambition to capture and study Ultraman had inadvertently sparked a perfect storm: heroes at odds, a protector on the defensive, and a kaiju swarm that threatened to engulf the city entirely. Ultraman's eyes scanned the horizon, the ocean, the sky above. He realized, with chilling clarity, that this was a test far beyond brute strength. Trust had been shattered, and in its place grew an impossible decision: fight the kaiju, battle divided heroes, and defend a world that might never truly accept him, or risk letting chaos reign unchecked. And then, from the depths of the storm-tossed sea, a ripple unlike any other surged upward. Thousands of eyes glimmered in the dark water. The swarm was vast, but even larger beings lurked behind, monstrous silhouettes hinting at a threat beyond imagination. Ultraman's host tightened his stance, energy flaring brighter, ready for what was coming. The city trembled. Heroes hesitated. The ocean roared. And in that moment, the screen cuts to black, leaving the audience with a single, terrifying thought. The kaiju swarm has emerged. The people you trust may betray you. And no one, not even a hero from beyond the stars, can face this alone. The world shivered under a storm of chaos. From Tokyo to New York, Paris to Sao Paulo, cities erupted in a symphony of fire and destruction. Kaiju towers clawed through the skyline, their roars shattering windows and tearing streets apart. Sirens screamed endlessly, mingling with the distant cries of citizens fleeing, as if the entire planet had been thrown into a fevered nightmare. Ultraman moved with relentless precision, a colossus of silver and crimson streaking through the smoke-choked skies. Each swing of his arm sent shockwaves, each beam of cosmic energy tearing through steel and stone alike. Around him, heroes dashed, soared, and collided with the monsters, quirk abilities flashing brilliantly, but even together, they were stretched thin. The world's defenders were being overwhelmed, and the scale of the assault dwarfed any previous encounter. Midoriya, evacuate civilians from Sector 9, one hero called, voice cracking with urgency as a kaiju's massive tail smashed a nearby street. Midoriya sprinted, quirk burning at full power, while Ultraman intercepted a clawed strike midair, twisting and sending the creature crashing into a crumbling skyscraper. Energy pulsed from his body like the heartbeat of a star. He had already pushed his power far beyond what was safe for a single city. And yet, more monsters came. Kaiju after kaiju emerged from the oceans, forests, and underground tunnels, each more massive, more terrifying than the last. Their attacks were coordinated with a terrifying intelligence, hinting at guidance beyond instinct. Ultraman's internal sensors flared. He was absorbing, countering, deflecting, but with every moment, the strain built. His chest glowed brighter, energy flaring down the length of his arms, as if the very universe was calling upon him to endure. The air around him shimmered, charged with the friction of cosmic power and quirk energy colliding. And then, it happened. One kaiju, smaller than some of its brethren, but no less terrifying, stumbled mid-battle. Its scales cracked, light flickering along its body, and then it began to change. Tendrils of energy erupted outward, weaving like molten threads of power. The creature's eyes glowed an unnatural green, and around it, faint pulses of quirk energy from nearby heroes were being drawn toward it, as if gravity itself had bent to its will. Impossible, a hero gasped, his quirk faltering as he felt his own strength siphoned away. Another screamed, energy dissolving mid-air, leaving only sparks in its place. The kaiju roared, a sound that vibrated through the chest and soul, and then leapt forward with devastating force. It moved faster, stronger, adaptive in a way no one could predict. Each strike absorbed more quirk energy, amplifying its already monstrous power. Ultraman's eyes narrowed. He soared above the city, scanning the battlefield, calculating, analyzing. His host felt a chill unlike anything before. The kaiju was evolving not from instinct alone, but from the energy of heroes themselves. Cosmic power met quirk power in a horrifying mirror, twisting the balance. He launched into action. Every punch, every kick, every beam of light was a blend of speed, strategy, and sheer force. But the kaiju anticipated, countered, and adapted with terrifying speed. Each absorbed quirk made it stronger, smarter. A massive tail swung, smashing through a building. Ultraman dodged, but the shockwave sent him hurtling toward the ground. Midoriya dove to intercept, his one for all pulsing with desperate strength. "I've got you, Ultraman," he shouted, launching a powerful strike at the creature's side. But the kaiju's new form absorbed even that, glowing brighter as its body hummed with stolen power. The city itself became a battlefield of energy and debris. Smoke and sparks filled the air, the sounds of colliding titans echoing in a symphony of chaos. Heroes were forced to retreat, regroup, and rethink their strategy. Ultraman's wings of cosmic light expanded, and he fired a concentrated energy beam, but even that only slowed the kaiju momentarily. "This isn't just an attack," Ultraman muttered internally, a sense of dread settling like ice in his chest. "It's an evolution, and it's learning from us." Above, clouds swirled unnaturally, dark and heavy. The kaiju continued its rampage, feeding on every ounce of quirk energy, growing stronger by the second. Around Ultraman, heroes faltered, exhaustion etched into every movement. The protector of worlds could feel his limits approaching, every strike, every deflection pushing him closer to the edge of sustainable power. And then a tremor ran through the ground, resonating through steel and bone alike. From the horizon, yet more kaiju emerged, drawn to the chaos, drawn by the evolving monster that had begun feeding on heroes. Ultraman's host clenched his fists, energy flaring brighter than ever, a desperate determination burning in his eyes. He understood now. To save the cities, to save the people, he could not fight cautiously. Every strike had to count, every movement precise. Failure was not an option. The camera pans outward, entire cities burning, heroes in retreat, kaiju swarming like a tide of living catastrophe. And at the center, a single evolving monster feeding on their energy, growing stronger with each passing heartbeat. Ultraman hovers above, the glow of cosmic power crackling around him, eyes locked on the new threat. The world holds its breath, the battle teetering on the edge of collapse. And then the screen cuts to black, leaving the audience with one pulse-pounding question. If the monsters can absorb the power of heroes, what hope remains for the world? The air was heavy with the scent of ozone and burning metal, a world on the brink of collapse. Cities lay in ruin, skyscrapers splintered like matchsticks, and the echoes of kaiju roars bounced across the shattered landscape. Amid this chaos, Ultraman hovered above, wings of cosmic energy crackling around him, scanning the horizon with unyielding focus. He had felt it before, the subtle, insidious pattern behind the attacks. But now, the truth was undeniable. The revelations hit like a thunderclap. All for One had been orchestrating everything. Not merely content with exploiting villain factions, he had been experimenting in secret, fusing kaiju DNA with stolen quirks, crafting monsters that were more than beasts. They were engineered weapons. Each kaiju in the recent rampages had been a test, a calibration, absorbing hero energy to refine the ultimate predator. The realization sent a chill through Ultraman's host, a familiar mix of awe and alarm. This was no ordinary threat. This was a nightmare born of ambition and intellect, a monster designed to rival cosmic might itself. In the distance, the ground began to quake, first in subtle tremors, then in violent pulses. Dust spiraled into the sky as the ocean parted unnaturally, revealing the silhouette of something colossal, moving with deliberate, predatory intent. Heroes who had rushed to aid the cities froze, their eyes widening as the form emerged, an abomination of scales, muscle, and quirk-charged energy, glimmering with stolen powers that hummed like a charged battery. Midoriya's voice cracked over comms, edged with both fear and determination. Ultraman, that that thing isn't just a kaiju. It's it's he couldn't finish. No words could contain the magnitude of what stood before them. Ultraman's glowing eyes narrowed. Every fiber of his being resonated with alertness. The creature pulsed, veins of quirk energy running across its form, each flicker echoing the abilities of heroes who had fallen in prior skirmishes. Its claws twitched as if sensing the battle around it, its head tilting to study the defenders like a predator assessing prey. This is all for one's doing, Ultraman muttered to himself, voice low, heavy with grim realization. He doesn't just want power. He wants control over life itself. A quirk-powered kaiju army. The words felt like a weight pressing down on the ruined city beneath them. Around him, heroes began to regroup, though unease rippled through their ranks. Some stared at Ultraman with admiration, trusting his guidance, while others shot wary glances, fear lacing their expressions. Even among heroes, doubts surfaced. How could they fight something that was essentially themselves turned into a weapon? How could they match a being designed to anticipate their every move? A sudden roar tore through the sky, a deafening sound that vibrated through stone and bone alike. The kaiju stepped forward, and with each step, the ground fractured, buildings collapsing beneath its weight. Energy flickered across its body, a horrifying display of quirk assimilation. Its eyes glowed, green with an unnatural intelligence, scanning, calculating, adapting. Ultraman descended, landing between the creature and the remaining civilians, chest glowing like a miniature sun. "I will stop you," he said, his voice both calm and commanding. "No matter the power you have taken, no matter the design behind your existence, I will protect this world." The kaiju's response was a roar that shattered the air, followed by a sweeping strike of a massive arm, charged with quirk energy siphoned from countless heroes. Ultraman blocked with his own energy shield, sending shockwaves rippling through the shattered streets. The impact cracked concrete and glass alike, a reminder that this battle would not be fought with caution. Every move would push them to the edge of survival. Midoriya lunged forward, quirk flaring, attempting to strike at the creature's side, but the monster reacted almost instantly, absorbing the energy mid-flight. His body jolted, a surge of stolen power coursing through the kaiju's massive frame, and it let out a scream that was both pain and triumph. The battlefield itself seemed to shudder under the realization. This was not a creature to be simply defeated. It was a living weapon, honed from the very essence of heroes. Ultraman took a deep breath, cosmic light swelling around him. Every strike from this point on had to be precise, every strategy flawless. The creature before him was more than brute force. It was the culmination of stolen hopes, fears, and power, animated into a nightmare. And then the sky darkened further, unnatural clouds forming a swirling vortex. From the shadows beyond, additional kaiju began to stir, drawn to the signal of their progenitor. The ultimate monster lifted its head, eyes scanning the horizon, and let out a roar that resonated like a drum of impending doom. Ultraman's wings flared with blinding intensity. "All for one, I will end this," he said, a promise forged in cosmic light and unwavering resolve. The camera pans out, heroes poised, the city trembling, and a new terrifying apex predator at the center of it all, its stolen quirk energy pulsing like a heartbeat. a world on the brink, and a revelation that the war was far from over. And then the screen cuts to black. A voice, low and chilling, echoes, "You cannot stop what I have created. Not even you, Ultraman." The audience is left with one question, hanging in the air like a storm cloud. If this is only the beginning, how will the world survive the ultimate puppet master? The horizon burned with chaos. Smoke and fire twisted skyward as the ruins of the city stretched into a jagged horizon, scarred by the relentless onslaught of Kaiju. And at the center of it all, Ultraman hovered, towering and radiant, his cosmic energy blazing like a dying sun. Below, the streets were a battlefield, littered with the remnants of heroes who had tried and failed to hold the line. But today, there would be no retreat. Today, the largest battle the world had ever seen was about to begin. From the edge of the wreckage, Midoriya and his classmates burst forward, their costumes battered but resolute. Eyes wide with determination, they scanned the battlefield, taking in the scale of the war before them. Kaiju, larger than anything they had trained for, now moved with an intelligence that betrayed All for One's manipulations. Each step of the colossal monsters shattered streets and buildings, their bodies pulsing with stolen quirk energy, a living testament to the villain's ambition. "Everyone, stay close," Midoriya shouted, voice steady but fierce. "We're not here to run. We fight. For them, for everyone who can't." The students rallied, their quirks flaring, energy surging into the air. Sparks of power danced across the battlefield as they combined their abilities, forming barriers, launching energy strikes, and rescuing civilians trapped under collapsing buildings. Yet even as they fought, the enormity of the threat weighed heavily on their shoulders. Ultraman's gaze was fixed on the ultimate Kaiju, a towering monstrosity thrumming with stolen hero energy. Every second, his own energy meter ticked downward, the timer glowing ominously across his chest. Cosmic light danced across his form, a brilliant reminder of the power he carried and the limit that shadowed it. He had been fighting non-stop, pushing his body beyond safe limits, and now the countdown loomed. Time was not on their side. The Kaiju lunged, its massive claws tearing into the shattered asphalt. Ultraman met it head-on, energy blasts colliding in a shockwave that shattered windows for blocks around. The ground beneath them cracked in jagged lines, lightning arcing from broken power lines as if the world itself recognized the clash of titans. Midoriya ducked under a sweeping tail, quirk energy flaring from his limbs. "It's absorbing our powers," he shouted, eyes widening as he realized the creature's horrifying evolution. With each attack, the Kaiju assimilated quirk energy, adapting instantly to their strategies. Its glowing veins pulsed, a sinister rhythm that matched the rising panic of the battlefield. Bakugo, shouting across the chaos, ignited his explosions in a furious barrage. "Don't let it adapt to you. Hit it hard, hit it fast." His voice carried both anger and resolve, and the students followed, combining their quirks in coordinated strikes. But even as buildings crumbled and debris flew, the ultimate Kaiju barely faltered, each blow feeding its strength rather than diminishing it. Ultraman's wings flared, light cascading across the streets, cutting through smoke and fire. He threw himself into the air, charging the Kaiju with every ounce of cosmic energy remaining. His strikes were precise, calculated, but the meter on his chest blinked dangerously, each pulse reminding him that this was the final stretch. If he overextended, even for a second, the battle could turn irrevocably. The ultimate Kaiju roared in response, a sound that shook the horizon and drew the attention of all remaining Kaiju in the city. One by one, more monsters stirred, drawn to the signal of their progenitor. Their shadows stretched across the ruins, a wave of destruction swelling behind the apex predator. Ultraman's light illuminated the battlefield like a lighthouse in a storm, and yet he could feel his energy waning. Midoriya dove to shield a group of civilians, quirk flaring brightly, narrowly dodging a crushing swipe from the kaiju. Ultraman, hang in there. We've got this together. His words cut through the roar of chaos, a spark of hope amidst the devastation. Even as they fought, the students could sense the precarious balance. Their strength alone could not overcome the kaiju's evolution. It was Ultraman who anchored their hope, his presence the fulcrum on which the battle teetered. A sudden pulse of energy erupted from the ultimate kaiju, a wave that sent heroes flying, debris raining like deadly hail. Ultraman pushed against it, his wings glowing brighter than ever, straining to hold the energy at bay. The timer on his chest neared its final seconds, red flashing against the blue of his body, each tick a drumbeat of tension that resonated across the battlefield. The camera pans upward, a sky torn with smoke, city streets shattered, heroes pressing forward despite exhaustion, and Ultraman at the center, a beacon against insurmountable odds. The kaiju towered above him, energy crackling with every stolen quirk, preparing for a decisive strike. And then, in a hush amidst the chaos, a single thought forms in Ultraman's mind. This is it. The final seconds. Every choice, every action from here will define the fate of this world. The screen cuts to black, leaving the audience gripping their seats, hearts pounding as the timer's final pulse echoes. Tick, tick, tick. The War of Giants has only just begun. The battlefield was a shattered symphony of smoke, fire, and twisted steel. The horizon burned in shades of orange and crimson, reflecting the relentless chaos of the kaiju war. Buildings lay in ruin, their skeletal frames silhouetted against the twilight sky, as if the world itself had been carved into jagged monuments to the horrors unleashed. And in the center of it all hovered Ultraman, his form luminous, a solitary figure of hope and power against the tide of destruction. Every second counted. His cosmic energy had been stretched beyond its known limits, pulsing erratically across his body like a star on the verge of collapse. The ultimate kaiju, now a towering amalgam of stolen quirk energy, roared with a sound that shook the earth, its glowing veins thundering with every heartbeat. Each pulse it emitted seemed to draw the energy of the world toward it, threatening to consume everything in its path. Midoriya and his classmates, battered and bruised, formed a circle around the kaiju, their quirks flaring as they launched a coordinated assault. Sparks danced in the air, wind swirled with the force of their combined powers, and debris became both shield and weapon in their desperate strategy. We have to weaken it. Every quirk counts, Midoriya shouted, sweat and blood streaking his determined face. He darted between strikes, reading the monster's movements, pushing his body to extremes he had never imagined. Bakugo's explosions tore through the air with deafening fury, igniting the remnants of collapsing structures as he screamed, "Keep it off balance. Don't give it a chance to absorb us." His voice, raw and fierce, carried over the chaos, a rallying cry for every hero still standing. They fought not just for survival, but for the fragile hope that Ultraman had inspired. A hope that humanity could rise above fear, even in the face of cosmic devastation. Ultraman's wings glowed like twin suns as he hovered above the kaiju, energy streaming from his hands in arcs of blinding light. Each strike was calculated, precise, but every movement sapped more of his cosmic reservoir. He could feel it, his limit approaching, the meter in his chest blinking with a warning he could no longer ignore. Yet he held fast, his gaze locking on the ultimate kaiju with unwavering resolve. The monster lunged, claws slashing through the air, but the combined efforts of the students and Ultraman created a synchronized assault that staggered it. Energy beams collided with its body, explosive bursts from quirk and cosmic power rattling the ground beneath them. Ultraman's voice rang out, deep and resonant. "This ends now. Humanity, your future is yours to protect." His words were not just a command. They were a benediction, a passing of trust to those who had fought beside him. Then, in a crescendo of cosmic light, Ultraman gathered the last of his energy. Wings spread wide, aura flaring brighter than any star in the darkened sky, he channeled everything into a single, unimaginable blast. The kaiju shrieked as the energy enveloped it, the stolen quirk power unraveling, veins of energy tearing apart, exploding into a cascade of light that washed over the battlefield. The force of the blast was so intense that debris, dust, and fragments of the world itself were lifted into a swirling tornado of destruction and rebirth. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Heroes and civilians alike shielded their eyes from the brilliance, hearts pounding in unison. And then silence. The kaiju was gone, its immense body reduced to nothing more than a fading echo of power, leaving behind only the scorched earth and shattered dreams it had trampled. But the victory came at a cost. Ultraman's light began to waver, the radiant form flickering like a dying star. Midoriya's eyes widened as he reached out instinctively. "Ultraman, no!" His voice cracked, filled with fear and disbelief. Around them, the students and heroes turned, witnessing the impossible. Their savior, the cosmic warrior who had turned the tide of the battle, slowly fading before their eyes. Ultraman hovered, energy dimming, yet his presence remained commanding, his gaze softening as it met Midoriya's. You have the strength within you," he said. Voice now a gentle hum carried on the wind. "Protect your world, even when I am gone." The words resonated through the hearts of everyone present, a legacy of courage and hope etched into their souls. As the final remnants of light dissipated, Ultraman's form shrank, becoming more ethereal with every passing second, until all that remained was a faint glow hovering briefly above the city ruins. Midoriya, Bakugo, and the students stood in silence, absorbing the weight of the moment, their quirks still flaring faintly, a reminder that the battle had been won. But the responsibility now rested entirely on their shoulders. The camera pans across the battlefield, smoke rising from twisted steel, rubble strewn across the streets, and the young heroes standing united, faces lit by the last glimmers of Ultraman's fading radiance. A profound hush lingers, broken only by the soft wind, carrying a single, unshakable truth. The light that had saved the world now entrusted it to those who remained. And as the glow vanished completely, leaving behind only the dawn breaking over a ravaged city, one thought lingered in every hero's mind. The war is over, but the world's true test is just beginning. The screen holds on the horizon, silent yet powerful, as the echoes of Ultraman's sacrifice resonate, a promise that heroism is not bound by power alone, but by the courage to rise when all seems lost. The sun rose over a city still bearing the scars of battles past. Crumbled buildings and scorched streets stood as silent witnesses to the chaos that had once threatened to consume the world. Yet, amid the ruins, life had begun to stir again, resilient, determined, and quietly heroic. Months had passed since Ultraman's sacrifice, and the echoes of his final light still resonated in the hearts of those who had witnessed it. Midoriya walked through the streets, his eyes taking in the aftermath with a mixture of solemnity and resolve. He moved past children playing near repaired playgrounds, firefighters rebuilding collapsed structures, and heroes guiding civilians back to safety. Each scene was a testament to the enduring spirit of humanity, a spirit Ultraman had entrusted to them. He remembered the luminous figure hovering above the battlefield, the weight of trust in its words, and the unspoken challenge to rise above fear and limitations. Everyone, keep moving forward, Midoriya murmured to himself, almost reverently. We carry his hope. His fight wasn't just for survival. It was for how we live, how we protect, how we choose courage over despair. His words felt heavier than any battle cry. They were a vow. Around him, heroes trained harder, studied further, and taught others the principles that had been solidified in the fires of cosmic war. Hero society itself began to shift, redefining ideals of strength, courage, and unity. Quirks were no longer merely tools for fame or power. They were instruments of responsibility, of universal protection. Even the more skeptical members of society, those who had once clung to politics and hierarchy, began to recognize the truth in Ultraman's philosophy. They watched as communities formed together to prepare for future threats, emphasizing cooperation over competition, empathy over ego. The world was learning, slowly, painfully, and irrevocably, that heroism was a mantle, shared, not a privilege earned alone. As Midoriya ascended to the top of a skyscraper, his gaze stretched far beyond the horizon. The ocean shimmered under the morning light, cities stretched into the distance, and mountains rose like guardians of a renewed earth. For a brief moment, the chaos of the past seemed distant, almost like a memory from someone else's life. And then, a faint pulse of light caught his attention. Far beyond Earth, a distant star flickered with an intensity that was unnatural, deliberate. It pulsed rhythmically, like a heartbeat reaching across the void, resonating through dimensions and cosmic channels beyond human comprehension. Midoriya's eyes widened as he realized the significance. It's a signal, he whispered. Someone's aware. Someone knows. The glow was unmistakable to those who had trained to perceive the extraordinary, but its true meaning was revealed only in the silence that followed. Far beyond the reaches of this universe, another Ultraman detected the signal, eyes narrowing as cosmic awareness aligned with the pulse. Somewhere, out there among the stars, another watcher stirred, a guardian of a different world, sensing a civilization ripe with potential, threatened yet capable, and now known to the multiverse. Back on Earth, Midoriya clenched his fists, a mixture of awe and responsibility surging through him. He felt the weight of the universe pressing down, a reminder that the battles they had fought were not isolated, that the light they had inherited carried consequences far beyond their world. We're not alone, he said, his voice steady, yet filled with reverence. The universe is watching, and we have to be ready. Around him, the city thrummed with life, heroes rising from the shadows of the past conflict, civilians contributing where they could, and the principles Ultraman had embodied beginning to crystallize into a new societal code. Schools began integrating ethics and heroism into their curricula. Training programs emphasized teamwork and responsibility over raw strength. Even small acts, a child helping another pick up a fallen toy, A volunteer rebuilding a damaged street felt monumental. They were echoes of Ultraman's light, refracted through the human spirit. And then across the skies, the faint shimmer of that distant star seemed to respond, a gentle, almost imperceptible nod to the courage of a single world among countless others. It was a reminder that the multiverse was vast, yet observant. That heroism, once thought bound to a single planet, was now a signal, a beacon, a story reaching beyond the limits of space and time. Midoriya turned to the students at his side, eyes burning with determination. "We have to keep growing," he said. "Not just for us, but for everyone who will come after. Ultraman showed us what it means to protect universally. It's our turn now, to be the light when the darkness comes, to be ready for what's out there and beyond." The camera pulls back, rising above the city, above the planet, and into the cold infinity of space. There, the distant star pulses once more, brighter than before, casting a faint glow across the cosmic expanse. Somewhere, another Ultraman stirs, drawn toward this world now known to the multiverse. The screen fades to black, leaving only the heartbeat of a universe, in motion. A silent promise echoing across stars and dimensions. The legend of the giant hero has only just begun.